back when COVID hit and back when inflation started hitting, everybody got hit, and that's including the crabbers. And it was asked for me to come up with a design of a trap that was a little more economical to build and still catch crabs. Welcome to the deep woods of North Florida. You guys in Louisiana are gonna absolutely love them. And the crabbers are buying these by the hundred. So what I did is I took an old ID, full-size 3-shooter, tore it apart, lowered the profile, used less wire, make more traps. Perfect for inshore crabbing. Shallow water, crabs have a place to run and hide. And offshore, you know how hard them stone crabs are to get out of them traps. All right, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna cut the panels and the wire and bend for the bait well. Your first panel is gonna be for the body itself. That body is gonna require 42 meshes of the 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch, okay? And we're gonna go ahead and cut that. And then we're going to take it and spin it around, and we're going to cut that panel down to 9 inches. You've got six meshes at 1.5 inches a piece. That's 9 inches. All right, then you're going to want to cut a panel for your bait well lid and the bottom plate. The bait well lid itself is, what do I got here? I got 14 by 10. That gives me a mesh on each side of the bait well and then a lip to open and close. The bottom plate is going to match the bait well itself square at 9 by 12. So, and when I say 9 by 12, I meant this bait well is going to be 9 meshes deep, and it's going to be 12 meshes wide. Now when you get your bait well panel for the body cut, you're going to want to bend it. And then what I do there is I take the 9 by 12 base plate and I use that to gauge where I'm going to make my bends on, you know, that cutting and bending machine over there before I staple it. So I call it a long, short, long. What I do is I'll put the short side up, mark it, and then bend it there. And then I'll do the long side, mark it, and bend it there. And then I'll do another short side, mark it, and bend it there. And that'll be the last bend. And so what you end up with is a bent cage. And it's ready to staple. And what we do is, you know, just staple the seam, and we just space the staples along the edge of that seam. So just zap that and get that secured, and then you're good to go. The next thing we're going to do is attach the bottom plate. The bottom plate you just put squarely on top of the bait well. And once you get that lined up with the bait well, you can staple and secure that. We generally put 3 staples along each side and then 4 along the other sides. And then what we've got is a closed bottom on the bait well before we get it installed. The next thing is to get it attached to the baffle. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll cut 16 meshes, and then we're going to take that wire and then we're going to bend it, okay? And it's going to need to be bent to where you have 10 meshes on one side and 6 on the other. Now we can get to cutting those. All right, now I've already showed you how to do that, but here's another quick example. You know, snip, 1, 2, 3, 4, snip, 1, 2, 3, 4, snip. All right, now you have the baffle ready to attach the bait well. You'll take the bait well and line it up centered, excuse me, on the baffle. And we're going to put 3 staples on one side, 3 along the other side, and 4 along the back. And then we're going to attach the lid for the bait well. And I generally, Tammy does 3, I do 4. I guess it all depends, you know, on who's putting the trap together. But 3's been working out fine. I just happen to put 4. So go zap, 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 and you're done. But you'll want it so that this lid actually operates on a hinge. And then we'll secure it to the front of the baffle. And the next thing we need to do is to go ahead and cut our openings. Oh, stop. Hey, why don't we zap the hole in the bait well? So what we're going to do is we're just going to cut the wire meshes out with our pneumatic snipper and create that hole. Now we're ready to go on to the next step. All right, then once we have that, we're going to attach the baffle after we've bent it to what I call the skins. All right, you've got 10 meshes on each side, so you got 20, and then you got 16 meshes on the bottom. So that's, no, it's actually 36 meshes. Yeah, let me do some math correctly. All right, so you've got that many meshes. We're going to cut that on the cutter, and then we need 2 of them to complete this trap. And I'm going to bend it on my lean mean crab wire bending machine. And I'm going to bend both of those. And then on each panel, I'm going to bend the corners on each side. When you do that, that just makes it easier to fit, you know, the skins together and to help you get it squared up without having to fight it too much. And then we're going to go ahead and attach the baffle to what I call the skins. All right, now when you do that, you just attach the baffle to the back. You'll come down 4 meshes, and then I secure it on the end, and then I go every other mesh till I get to the end. All right, now I generally put 2 staples on the end, and it's a trade secret as to why I do that. All right, but it's so I know I built the trap. All right, and now what you're going to want to do is attach the baffle to the bottom of the skin. Okay, we go every other mesh, and we do that from each side. And then I generally put a couple staples to help secure the bait well and the baffle to the bottom of the trap there. While I'm at it, I want to make sure I mention this. You know, you have your lid for the bait well. You know, usually I like to make my bait well traps self-retracting, self-closing, or whatever you want, however you want to say it. But here, this is where I put a bungee to the top of the lid on the bait well, and then I feed it through the back up over the top. Then I pull and stretch it, and then I staple that together, and then I cut the bungee. I use a lighter and singe the ends of the bungee. That gives a, you know, cleaner look. It's more professional, okay? Everybody else I see building traps don't do that. So if you ever see one with burnt ends on the end of the mesh, that means I built it, right? Okay. Oh, hey, another thing, if you actually bought any of our traps, you'll notice that on the back of the trap here, one corner's got 2 staples at the end, because when I go every other one, I end up here, and I usually just flip another one in there. That way I know I made the trap. And you'll also notice that on the other side here too. You know, so you go, hey, I got one of Mr. Randy's traps. Now we're going to take that and we're going to place the other skin over top of that skin, and you're going to start seeing the trap transform. So we'll make sure we got our meshes lined up. We'll go ahead and secure it and go every other one until we get to the other side. And I generally end up with 2 on the end. And then we're going to flip the trap around, and then we're going to staple the top to the other skin all the way across. We're going to line up our meshes, use your hands, get it all aligned, use your brute strength, whatever you got to do, and then staple it all the way across. And so now you have that part of it. And of course, generally what I do when I'm stapling the traps together is I come back, and now this end's loose, but I'll line that up, and then I go every other staple. When I get to the baffle, where the baffle's attached to the trap, I generally put one on one side and one on the other of the baffle. I kind of felt it promoted strength for the trap, so that's the reason why we do that there. And then every other one, and then you just follow that all the way around like that until you get to the end. Then you'll want to flip the trap, okay, and do the same thing. You want to line up your mesh, use your brute strength with your hands, get it all lined up, secure it, and then every other one, get to the baffle, one on each side, and do that all the way around. Whoop, wrong side. But just start from there and go all the way around there like that. And after you get that, then what you'll want to do is you'll want to secure the baffle to the skin, and just every other one. Real simple. All right, you do both sides, do it the same way. All right, then what I'll do is I'll take and I'll grab my lid. So let's build a lid panel real quick. All right, these particular lids are modification actually to this trap. Normally I do a 12 mesh lid, but this particular fellow that buys these traps for some reason wants a 14 mesh lid. So we're going to cut this panel 14 meshes long. That gives him 2 meshes of coverage on each side of the trap. What good that's going to do, I don't know. But, you know, I mean, it looks good. All right. And so we'll cut that panel, and then when I cut that panel, I'm going to get 2 lids out of it, but we only need the one for right now. So we're going to take and cut that panel back 7 meshes, and then we're going to take the lid and we're going to place it in the bender, okay, on the edge of the first mesh on the side of the thick wire after you cut it, and then we're going to bend it just like that. All right, once we have it, this lid is ready to attach to the top of the trap. You just got to come over one mesh and staple it to the trap. I go 1, 2, and skip, 2, skips with the lid mounted. We're going to go ahead and cut the opening here. That way, with the lid in place, we know exactly where we're going to cut the opening. So this is 7 meshes here, and this is, what is this, 9? Yeah, 9 meshes across. Generally what we do is we cut our square out and we leave this mesh on the front intact, and then we'll cut so that we can take and bend it and staple the lip to the front of the trap to give that more strength. Okay, that's something that I came up with. So if you have a trap and you got the lid bent in there like that, that was my idea. All right, now what we've got to do is we're getting like really close. We've got to cut the openings for our chutes. Grabbers call them funnels. The guys at the shop call them chutes. I'm kind of like stuck in the middle. I call them funnels. But if you're talking to the sellers, they call them chutes. All right, but we're gonna go ahead and cut our opening. You know, we're gonna come, you know, on each side. This is a 3-shooter now, so you need to make sure that you're inside the baffle, okay? Don't go cutting on this side. I did that one time, or Tammy did it. I think we both did it. And ended up, you know, having to replace that panel. But you want to come over 3 meshes on the side, and then you're going to do, you know, a cutting operation. And and I call it a zigzag. Okay, for me, this is, you know, I classified this pattern as a zigzag. So you're going to come over 3, and then you're going to cut the first mesh up there on the inside on that 3rd mesh, and then you're going to go cut, and then you're going to turn it, you're going to zig, and then you're going to turn again, you're going to zag, and you cut the next mesh. Okay, and then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over. Okay, go ahead and come back over here, cut it again, and then you're going to zig and cut that, and then you're going to zag, cut that, and then you're going to go 1, 2, 3. All right, so when you pull that panel out, you've got your opening for the chute. And we're going to do that on the back side, except on the back side, you know, make sure you get centered up here when you go to put that chute in. You're going to come over 6 meshes. I got to get some teeth. All right, you're going to come over 6 meshes, and then you're going to go up and you're going to zigzag, and you're going to cut that same opening right there. Come to the other side, come in 3 meshes, zigzag, and there you got your 3 holes for your 3 chutes. All right, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna build a chute. All right, we're gonna cut the chute. It's 4 meshes, but one side is clean. All right, which means you have the prongs sticking out after you cut the chute. You just put in your cutter, cut that off, and then when you go to cut your next one, you're gonna push it through on the 4th mesh and cut it again, and you're gonna end up with a perfectly cut chute. Then we're gonna take that. I got a jig over here that I cut specifically for this chute. You're going to, you're gonna come in 4 meshes on each side. You're gonna line the chute up with the edge of the template. All right. Now this template I got built is 2 inches or 2 pieces of plywood thick. And so when you go to cut that, you'll see how it's angled. And so if you go to make you one, or if you want to make one, you know, you can just kind of follow that example. You know, you'll have 4 meshes on the end, and then it goes 1 mesh in on each side before you bend it down. So then I take it and I set it on my jig, and I put my fingers and I hold the wire in place while I do that. Now when you go to bend this, I learned a little trick. You don't try to mold it to the jig or the template. What you want to do is just barely, you want to give it the force, bend the wire, and then put it up under, let go, and that's it. Then when we get that, I'm going to get my trusty little helper, my lovely lady, And then I usually take the wire and hold it, and then she'll zap it with the stapler 1, 2, 3 times, okay? And so we're gonna need 3 of these. We'll do this one more time, just to give you a quick idea. You know, I'm gonna take the wire, I'm gonna place it on the template, I'm gonna bend it, and then I'm gonna hold it so that Tammy can zap, zap, zap again. Notice how she does that, okay? But basically what we did is we zapped it in a triangular pattern, 3 points, and then that way the chute is going to be exactly as it needs. You know, you need to come into one mesh, staple it at the cross. Hopefully you can get an idea of about how that got stapled when we put it together, and you'll have no trouble. Then we'll take that chute and we'll slip it inside. We'll slip it inside our little zigzag hole, okay? And then we're gonna staple the top edge, and I usually put a staple 2 in the center and then 2 on the end. And then I push it down and straddle the bottom of the chute, staple each of those corners, and then once on each side on the tabs that, you know, we bend in after we snip the holes. And so we've got 3 of those. We're gonna do 1, 2, and 3. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut the holes for the coal rings. Okay, we got 4 meshes here, right? We're gonna come in 2, go down 1, and then we're gonna cut that opening out. We're gonna come in 2 on the other side, come down 1. We're gonna cut that open, and then we're gonna come up 1 and then 2 on the bottom side and cut that open. In Florida, you know, FWC requires that you have 2 rings on the upper chamber, although it reads 1 ring per chamber, but according to them, you need 2 rings on the upper chamber and then 1 ring on the bottom. And then we'll go zap, 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 and we'll get all those rings attached just like that. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention is that when we did the lid, we need to do the bungee for the lid, shock cord bungee. All right, so you got this bungee cord is what, like 9 meshes long, and so, you know, you'll want to take your shock cord and then lay it across 9 meshes, singe the ends, and then we're going to take it and we're going to wrap each end around the lid. We're going to come in 1 mesh and we're going to go over 4 on this one because this is an extra wide lid, and we're going to wrap it and staple it. And then we're going to do the same thing as we do on all of our other traps. You know, we use a piece of cut dowel, and this dowel's 2 inches wide. It's a 3/8 dowel, and you'll want to put that into the handle and then create a butterfly, and, you know, just kind of loop it and put the loops over the edges of the dowel, kind of like that, and pull it and get it nice and snug. Take and pinch your cord together, zap, and you got that. All right, there you have it. Mean crab catching machine right there. Less wire, lower profile. Get more of them on the boat when you go to take them out and drop them off. Get more on the boat when you're going out and getting them because there's a hurricane coming. Other than that, like, subscribe, share, join our channel, become a member, support our cause. We will see you in the next video.